All right. Welcome to episode 11 of the For My Dawgs Podcast. As always, I got my dog Johnny here with me.
Cheers, everyone.
Obviously, we're both repping our teams today because both our teams had big wins this weekend. So
Upset wins.
yeah, both were upset. Yep,
Yes.
we were the underdogs. Underdogs won.
Horns
For
down,
my
man.
dogs.
Horns down. There we go. They all doubted us. Game day, everybody picked Texas. We were not supposed to win. I also might have doubted us too. And I mean, listen, Carson Beck had his worst game. He threw 3 interceptions, and so even with his worst game, we still came up on top. So, and Mr. Arch Manning came in, and he couldn't do anything against our defense. So, it was very encouraging.
That was the best your defense has looked so far, I think.
Oh, I mean, we finally showed up, and we did our old stuff. The way we played that game was not the way we played against Bama, where we did short drives, and that's how we're not good for these long drives like we did against Bama. Even against Mississippi State, we did that, and we didn't do so hot with them. So we finally, Bobo, I think, listened to me, and he finally went back to his short stuff and stopped doing
the podcast.
Yeah,
he heard the podcast and said, I got to make a change.
Yes. So, Bobo, you're welcome for my advice.
Yeah.
Hey, Bama, also, listen, I was torn, because I wanted us to look good, but I also, I did want y'all to kill them, and thankfully, UT came out, the correct UT.
That's right, yeah, because we're the real UT.
Right.
Haley sent a video in our group chat about it's Josh Mancuso, the comedian, and I just cracked up because he had this. He did all 4 teams. So usually he'll do Tennessee and Georgia.
Right.
He just go back and forth. But this time he did. It was mainly Georgia and Texas, but then he had Tennessee and Bama too.
And then he had Vanderbilt.
And then Vanderbilt showed up. Yeah. But at one point he was the Tennessee fan and Texas fan were going back and forth, and he was like, we'd be Northern Mexico if it wasn't for us. So I was like, man, that's a good one. Because that's where we got our name from.
Hey,
the volunteers, because of the Alamo.
And what I also didn't realize was I thought that now every SEC team has lost 1 game, but I forgot about
A&M hasn't,
and LSU have not either.
Yeah.
I forgot about them too, and they've been sleeper teams. No one's really paying attention, or at least for me, I'm not paying attention. But
yeah,
I mean, I guess they're gonna come up. But I think Texas plays A&M and Bama plays LSU. I don't think Tennessee or Georgia plays them. So
no, we don't play either of those teams.
So there's a chance that they could both have a loss too. That'd be crazy if every SEC team had a loss.
Oh yeah, the SEC is going to be really interesting.
Yeah,
when it gets down to the wire. I mean, yeah, there's just still so many good games left. You guys still play Ole Miss.
We have a bye week, and then we play Florida.
Okay, so you still got Florida. You got Ole Miss. Any other big games?
No, and then I think we got 6 weeks until Thanksgiving. So I think we play. Oh yeah, we play some small team. But yeah, we play Georgia Tech. We play some small team. I think
you play Tennessee.
I totally just passed my mind. Oh yeah, yeah. And for our listeners, I don't know what we're going to do, but Tucker and I have to do something for the Georgia and Tennessee game. I mean, it would be unethical if we did not, just because it's what the whole thing's about.
Yeah. So we don't know what that's going to be yet, but we are trying to think of what would be best to do.
It'll be
for you guys to enjoy it with us somehow.
It'll be the day that Tucker and I are not friends. Is that 1 day a year?
We were friends last year.
After the game. Yeah, we were quiet.
Yeah, because I was pretty not happy.
Yeah, I was quiet.
But I kind of expected it, so.
Yeah. Hey.
But this year, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but this year,
don't get ahead of yourself.
Hopefully it could be a game.
Yeah, don't get ahead of yourself.
For the first time in a while.
We need to listen to lessons from sports because they teach us a lot of lessons.
It does.
Maybe that can be a segue.
If you want it to be, you can.
Hey, there we go. Yeah, so today we're doing Tucker and I both play sports, and we're doing lessons about, because sports is more than just throwing a ball. sports like teaches you a ton of lessons in life, and I think it's really cool to reflect on that, because I don't think at times a lot of people will actually be like, "Oh wow, you know what? This is actually is really impactful." And I think when I have kids, I'm not going to force them to do sports, but I will definitely encourage them to do sports because it's going to help them out in the long run.
Yeah, no, and we're going to talk about it from the sports perspective particularly, but I think just being part of some sort of organized like activity like that is super helpful. Whether, you may be musically inclined and you're part of a band or something like that. I think there's principles from sports that can carry over to stuff like that as well.
Right.
So I don't want to, limit it to just sports, but that's what we know, that's what we're familiar with, so that's what we're going to speak to. But I know that, the same, a lot of the stuff we're talking about can apply across other disciplines as well. So
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
want to
and for the
limit
sake
it.
of the podcast, yeah, we got to do this, and we're gonna like and tie it into mental health too, about how sports can also help you, with mental health, and it can help,
Hmm.
and it can help you along your journey with that. And you're right. I mean, you can do other things. I personally have not been part of the band, but hey, when I was in high school, the band, I think they practiced more than we did. I mean, like they were there
Hmm.
all the time. So I'm sure, shout out to all the band members from high school, but I'm sure that they have a lot of lessons too. I just personally, that was not my journey. So
Yeah, no, I mean, my brother was in marching band, and yeah, it was pretty intense.
yeah,
They practiced pretty hard, and um, you have to have a lot of discipline.
yeah,
I mean, and you got to move like the teamwork element that comes into sports also plays into marching band because their steps all have to be in sync in order for them to, you know, do what they're trying to do. So that's why it takes so much practice and trusting that, the
Y-
person beside you is going to be where they need to be.
yeah. And you just go back to football, because I played. I don't know about you. I played football and baseball. I played baseball when I was younger. Like I played baseball all the way up until like middle school, and then at the end of middle school, the beginning of high school is when I started playing football. So those are my two sports that I played. Did you play anything else besides football, or just football?
I played basketball. I played
Oh, you're right,
baseball a little
right,
bit growing up, but my main two was football and basketball. And then, I mean, after my sophomore year, I didn't play basketball anymore. I just
right.
focused on football. Honestly, I wish I would have played more sports when I
Yeah,
was in high school.
me
Like,
too.
that's one of my regrets. Just, I mean, everything happens, for a reason. But
No, I
I
want.
wish if I could go back, I would have done a lot more.
Well, I want my kids to like play soccer and football and baseball and basketball, because I mean also it's fun, because if you're hanging out with people who play
Yeah,
that, you're able to know more about it and be able to hang out in more ways, and just, oh, sorry guys, I never played, so I don't know like what I'm doing right now.
yeah.
But
Well, yeah, and it's a shame like the club sports, like travel baseball,
it
all
is
of that.
so
I mean,
intense.
and it's not just baseball. I don't want to pick on baseball, but like soccer, even
Yeah,
dance, like
and
girls that do
softball.
dance,
Yeah,
softball, like just all the time commitment that these leagues are putting on these families is just insane. And they're trying to like get kids to focus and play one sport, which I think is not actually what's best for the kids.
no,
But
no, it's
it's
not.
these organizations and these leagues, they have to make money to keep doing their thing.
Yeah,
And so they convince the kids like you need this to if you want to go to the next level. When in reality what colleges look at is they like to have athletes who played multiple sports because then they're not overusing the same muscles, which leads to increased injury risk. So,
right.
and it just makes you a more well-balanced athlete if you play multiple sports.
No,
You
our
learn more lessons that way from different
yeah,
seeing things from a different perspective playing another
different
sport,
coaches. Yeah,
different coaches, yeah. So yeah, I would love to see a return to instead of these travel leagues, just to return to like local, like recreational sports leagues
hmm,
that are not year round. They don't force you to pick one sport over the rest. Then they would let kids like just learn a bunch of different sports
well,
and
because
grow
also
in each of them.
rec league is like looked down upon. Like, oh yeah, you drew back, and I was like,
But
okay,
it
it's
didn't
this.
used to be though.
Yeah, I know. Like when I played, it wasn't like I played. It was called Andrew Bailey is where I played, and like everyone played there. And then, but like I was part of it when I saw the transition, where then a lot of my friends who were playing rec league with me are now, hey man, well I'm doing travel ball, and I
Hmm.
was like, it's still baseball. Like, well, I'm
Yeah.
not like it's not like you're playing like baseball 2.0 now. Like we're still playing the same sport,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it is this like difference of the two.
Yeah.
But no, when our season, so like I coached middle school football, and our season ended. The head coach he said, "Guys, don't just wait until next year to play
Hmm.
football again. Go wrestle, or as my dad says, wrestle. Go wrestle, or go play soccer, or do something just to keep your body active.
Yeah.
Um, because it's really good. But then like for that also is what we say at the end of everything is go be there for your dogs. And for me, football can teach that, or just sports in general can teach that. It's about about being there for somebody. Like our
Hmm.
whole podcast is about we can't do life alone, and so our entire podcast, our like focus, our theme is just to go be there for somebody because we all are dealing with stuff. And with sports, you learn how to support your brothers. Like I don't know about you, but like when you're like running back and forth, I remember running back and forth, and we're doing laps or we're going hash to hash, and sometimes the coach would just be like, when so and so stops slowing down, we'll all finish. And so then if you're going to be a leader, you're going to go to that guy, you're going to go behind him, go next to him, and you're just going to run at his pace. Like, come on, man, you got this. Let's go. Come on, let's go. And that seems like so minimal, but then you learn down the road that that's teaching you to be there for somebody. Just because you're ahead of them in life doesn't mean you can't run back to the previous hash mark, go with him, and help him get to where you are now. And that
Hmm.
seems so like minimal, but man, that's actually like really inspirational, and that will help you out with your friends, your wife, your family down the road.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, this the teamwork and the how you have to care for your teammates in a sport definitely should translate over into real life more than it does.
Right.
Um, I mean, you and I, we both played offensive line.
Yeah.
And for those of you that have never played football, offensive line is one of the most underrated, least talked about positions in football.
Amen.
But I mean, what offensive linemen do is truly like incredible. They make the ship go. The
Yeah.
quarterback and the skill players get all the praise, but like if you don't have a good offensive line, you're not going to have a good team. And the
Right.
thing that's unique about offensive linemen is like a receiver, they kind of control, they're out on an island most times and they just got to beat their guy. But like for the offensive line, for any one player on the offensive line to look good, they have to work together and each one has to do their own job. If
Right.
one person misses an assignment, it makes the whole offensive line look bad. It's not
Right.
just that guy.
Right.
And just the way you have to like communicate, and I mean, you all have to be on the same page and in sync.
Hmm.
And that just, I feel like a lot of times in life we lose sight of like when I played offensive line, I knew if I didn't do my job, it's going to affect my center being able to get to his, like
Yeah.
if I don't block this 3 technique the way I need to, it's going to prevent my center from getting to the linebacker who's going to make a play on my running back and meet him in the
Right.
hole, and we're going
Right.
to have a dead play. So like in football and playing that position, you got to think about how what you're doing affects more than just you and affects the people around you. And in life, I feel like it's hard to have that mindset when you're
Yeah.
just like working a desk job. You don't think about like, oh, well, if I'm lazy today, how is that going to impact the other people that I work with? What work is that going to put on their plate that I'm not getting done right now? Or you could go on and on with examples, but
No, that's good.
I just think the in sports you truly do have to think about the people that you're playing with almost more so than you do yourself, which not only is a good lesson for life, but that's also the way of Jesus.
Mm.
Like that's how Jesus teaches us to live. And that's one of the things I wanted to say most about this topic is I feel like sports get such a bad rap in church circles because of the travel leagues and everything. Like if you have families gone for multiple weeks in a row because they're in baseball season, I feel like oftentimes church staffs will frown upon that.
Mm.
But I think when you look at scripture and you look at the way Paul wrote in the New Testament, he uses so many sports analogies that I would bet, I don't know what I would bet, Johnny, but I would put money on that Paul was an avid sports fan, like you and I.
Yeah.
I do feel like Paul truly was like super into sports. I mean, he uses sports analogies left and right in the
He was
scriptures.
a
And so
dog, right?
he was dog. Yep.
He was a dog.
But I think sports, God uses sports in such an incredible way to teach us about how he's wired the world to work and how we grow and how um he just uses it to teach us. Like the story of Jesus, I feel like is weaved into everything around us, and that's true for sports too. And I don't feel like we think about it that way often. But just that first example we're talking about of like you got to be there for your dogs, you got to be there for your teammates, you got to think about how what you're doing impacts more than just you. Like that's a great life lesson, but it's a life lesson because it's the way of Jesus and it's how Jesus created us and wired us to be. And so sports can be a great reminder to get back to that.
No, that's perfect. I like that. Those two analogies. One, talking about Jesus is it's about, you know, being humble, sacrificing yourself, serving others, and leading from behind, not leading from up front, right? And then I like your analogy with in the office because I was a sinner. I know that's really hard to believe. If you could see me, that I was a lot bigger in high school.
It's
But
surprising that we were both offensive linemen. I
yes, I
weighed
know.
like 190 playing offensive guard.
Oh yeah, I was like 220 or something like that. I don't know, but I mean, still, I was. It was a long time ago. Definitely not now.
Yeah.
But and even then, we were too. I mean, I was still too small to be a offensive lineman. But because I was that small, sometimes I wasn't able to block the huge nose guard in front of me. And so I would have to go to my guard and say, "Hey, man, I need your help on this next play. Like, he is coming after me. Can you please help double team him?" And because I'm not be able to do it by myself, and so we would do that. And like in life, you're sometimes you can't do it all on your own. And if I was so prideful, it'd be like I'm gonna do it. Like I can do this. I'm not gonna call on anybody help. Then I'm gonna get blown back, and our quarterback's gonna get sacked. If I was too prideful to admit for help, but I had to humble myself, and I'd be like, "Hey, can you please help me with that?" And so there's with there is asking for help. You learn that, but also to your point is if you don't do your job, then it's gonna hurt somebody else. If you're a husband, if you're not putting in your your work for that, it's not just your life. And I think that's what I think Will was talking about that
Mm-hmm.
when he came on. It was you got other people that are depending on you, and
Mm-hmm.
in sports, people depend on you, and so you're your wife, your kids, or your other coworkers. I'm a teacher, so my students depend on me. You're a pastor, your congregation depends on you. It's not just about you, and so you have to put in your work to help out the other people as well. You learn that from sports for
Yeah.
that. So those are two great analogies that you just gave with that.
Yeah. And another reason I love sports, and this isn't necessarily related to like a life lesson you learn from sports per se, but I've talked about it before on the podcast. I just love how much sports brings people together and is like a
Yeah,
unifying force that is, we rarely see many things like that in our world anymore. Our world's become so divisive and just, I feel like angry all the time,
right.
which sports, if you're a fan of certain teams, it can make you angry. That
Luckily,
was the case of being a Tennessee fan for the past
hey, and people forget
20
that
years.
Georgia was bad too, but we were.
Yep.
So I definitely understand. I'm not a bandwagon.
Yep. But, sports just have this way of bringing people together. And in my life, like, I cannot tell you how many relationships I've built just because I saw someone wearing a shirt with a sports team logo on it. And I watch sports regularly and watch ESPN like all the time. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
I have a general knowledge of what's going on with all teams, even if it's not my team. And so, I mean, the amount of times that I've struck up conversation with someone because I saw them wearing like a Yankee shirt, and I said, "Oh, you guys! I just saw you guys went to the World Series. Congrats. How you feeling? Moving in." And then next thing you know, we're getting to know each other just because of they were wearing a sports team shirt.
Right.
Like it has this way of building bridges that not much else does in our world today. Um, and when you're playing sports, it's like that too. Like there's people that you play with that are on your team that you probably would never interact with
Mm-hmm.
unless you played that sport together. And so you
Yeah.
learn how to build relationships and how to work alongside people that are probably very different from you. You can't just like pick and choose who your teammates are going to be. Just
Mm-hmm.
like you can't pick and choose who your coworkers are going to be all the time. And so you got to like learn how to navigate different types of relationships, which is another really great reason to play sports. Um, I think that piece of it is huge.
Yeah, when you got that helmet on, that jersey, like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how your day was that day. It doesn't matter what happened in class or what family life you come from. It doesn't matter what kind of clothes you have. You're now on this equal playing field, and you need to put everything behind you. You don't need don't judge somebody just because of their background. Like right now, we are in this game of sports to where like that's all we're going to do right now is just play football or baseball or soccer or something like that. Doesn't matter anything else. And so when you like put the world behind you, you're able to come together.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, no, you're right. It is really good. But I mean, gosh, this podcast could go on for hours
Oh yeah,
talking about this.
yeah.
But for me, one of my favorite things is just like the never giving up mentality of that is, you know, I don't know if you ever enjoy practice, but I dreaded, I hated practice. I would like
Yeah.
if it was raining, I'd be like, oh, thank you, and then it would just like bound to stop right at 3:30, and I was like, oh, come on, man, and then it would be like hot as crap going there. So I hated practice,
Mm-hmm.
but practice was needed because we needed to learn, like we needed to put the work in, we needed to keep going for that.
Yeah.
And we need to put in those hours, put in the time, because then if we didn't practice, then we weren't gonna like do good in the game. And so like for life, like you gotta put in that time, you gotta put in that work. It may suck, like it may suck that okay, I don't like that I am having to get up every morning and work out. I don't like that I have to right now. I have to have someone check in on me because I don't want to be that. Okay, well, but you need that. I don't like it that I'm needing to go to therapy right now, or I don't like it I'm needing to take medication. Okay, you may not like those things, but it's beneficial because it's helping this goal for you. It's helping you to get better, and so you got to put in that work for that. Did you ever watch Facing the Giants?
Of course.
Great movie. Mark Rick, Georgia coach is in there, but left. Do you know what story I'm going to say is the
I
best?
don't know.
Oh, dude, look up, Brock. You're in the end zone. You
Oh
know
yeah.
that part
Yeah. Okay, I
where he
figured
is
that was
like
it.
bear crawling with the guy on his back and he's blindfolded, and the coach tells him, "All right, I just want you to do like 10 yards or something." And he goes, "Okay, I will." And then he's like, "Oh, coach, I'm getting tired." And at this point, he's gone way past 10 yards. He's gone 50 yards, and then he goes 60 yards, and then he eventually goes into the end zone. And the coach goes, "Look up, Brock. You're in the end zone." I quote that all the time, even, and it's just a funny quote to me. But just talking about just like never giving up, like keep going. There's times I'm sure. There's times in the like watch a Tennessee or Georgia game where a player might have missed a block, and he missed a block, and he ran back and made that, or at least he tried. Like never giving up until the final moment. And one of my stories for football is, like I said, I was a center, and I wasn't the best center. And one time I soared that puppy way over the quarterback's head. And if I would just I was so mad, and if I would just sat there and be like, oh well, then that wouldn't like nothing would have happened. But instead, what I went, because the defense guy ran after that, and I ran after the defense guy, and I like just tackled him to the ground. Now they got the ball back, so that sucked. But I didn't just sit there and watch my problems just run away from me. I ran after that. Yeah, I messed up. I failed, and like I'm quoting Will twice now. Like Will said, you're gonna fail, but fail fast, so that you can learn from it. So like did that, moved on. Okay, that was a bad play. Don't let that play, get in my head for the entire game, because then I'm not going to be able to improve. I want to learn from that, and let's go to the next play. So in life, you're going to fail. You're not going to do good, but don't let that mentality do that. Like I was this year, and I remember it was our last game of football. One of our linemen, he missed a block, and then he missed a second block, and then a third block. And I told him, I said, man, you messed up the first play. Yeah, that was bad. But you let that play determine your next 3 plays. So let's move on. And I said, the best way for people to forget when you do a bad play is to do a good play the next time. So let's move on. Let's not let that control us. And let's just put that away, and let's try to be better. Don't just sit there thinking about your bad play. Let's now start thinking about a good play to do. So never giving up until the last minute. So, I mean, that's my favorite one of all time.
No, and sports teach you so much about mental toughness, resilience. And I mean, you watch Tennessee this year. I'm going to tie it back to college football.
You have to.
But so you take our last 3 games, starting with the Arkansas game. In Arkansas, Florida, Bama, each game, first half offense looked abysmal. Absolutely horrendous. Making mistakes left and right. If it wasn't Nico, turning the ball over, it was an offensive lineman getting a holding penalty or a false start or a wide receiver dropping a pass. I mean, they just couldn't get on the same page. But in each one of those games, they came out in the second half, they stuck to it, and they started to put points on the board. Now, in Arkansas, it was too little too late. But in Florida and Alabama, I mean, they came out in the second half and they looked like a completely different team. And the defense played great the whole game, both games. Really is what kept them in it. But it just goes to show what you're talking about. Like, this Tennessee team, they have a belief. Even if they play horrible in a half, they're wiping the slate clean and saying that's not who we are. We're going to come back out in the second half and be who we know we can be. And it's this belief. Like I was being a goofball watching the Alabama game yesterday. So at halftime, I mean, I saw we were playing exactly how we did the previous 2 games in the first half. But this game, I felt different. In the Florida game, I was like, oh gosh, here we go. Florida's going to beat us again. Right. I started giving up on Tennessee.
Yeah.
This game, though, I was like, this feels different. Like, I still believe we can right the ship and we can pull this thing out. I went upstairs and I have this workout headband that has the Believe poster from Ted Lasso on it. I put that over my hat and I was like, I believe, come on, we can do it. But in sports, you have to have that ability to be resilient. When things go wrong, when things don't go your way, when your game plan is just destroyed and you got to come up with an adjustment, you have to have this just foundational belief in yourself and confidence and being able to see the positives and look for the positives. And that's you have to do that in life too. You have to do that in life. I mean, the amount of times Haley and I have had those conversations with each other. Like, she's done it for me and I've done it for her. But something bad will happen and she'll be like, oh, when's the next shoe going to drop? Or I'll do the same thing. We have to remind each other, don't let this one event ruin your whole day. It doesn't, just because one thing goes wrong, it doesn't mean there's going to be 3 or 4 things that go wrong after that.
Right.
It's not oftentimes, or they say, I think 85% of the things that we worry about never actually happen. And so sports give you this ability, if we're able to translate it. I think that's the key. You can play sports and not learn a thing from it.
That's fair.
To carry over to your life. But if we can translate it to life, sports can teach you that mental toughness and resilience so that when things go wrong in life, when things don't go according to your plan and you got to make adjustments on the fly, you do so knowing we're going to bounce back. It's going to be okay. This one event isn't going to define who I am, and it's not going to define my day, my week, my month, my year. We're going to bounce back, and we're going to make it right.
What's the whole point for this episode is maybe you didn't learn, or maybe you forgot, and maybe you're going through something right now, and you're listening to this episode, and you can look back at the glory days when you played, and you can be like, you know what, like, yeah, I did, lose that game, but then I won the next one. So right now I'm at a low point in my life, but let me move forward because Tennessee and Georgia both have lost a game, right? But they didn't let that define them. We did not let that define. Like, we lost to Alabama, and you beat Alabama. That does not mean that we're going to lose to you, though. So just to make that clear.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Scoreboard, right? But we lost to the number one team, Alabama. When we played them, when Georgia played them, we're the number one team, and then we went into Texas. And if we had said like, oh man, you know what, we lost number one team already, and that was Alabama, so we're now going to lose to Texas. If we went with that mentality, because the entire, world had that mentality about Georgia. And also, side note, Kirby Smart, when he was being interviewed by ESPN reporter. He was like, everyone doubted us. He's like, your whole program doubted us, talking to ESPN. And I was like, oh man, what a boss. I'm glad he called that out. But like, if Georgia would have done that, then they would have gone and they would have lost that game. So you can't let that define you. You might have anxiety. You might have depression. You might have a really crappy home life, and it's not fair. You might have had someone who's passed away. You might have gone through a breakup. You might not be able to find a job. You might want to get married and you can't find anybody. You might not have any like friends right now, but none of those things are you. You're not defined by those things. You are, if you're a Christian, you are, saved and the Lord loves you. And if you're not a Christian, listening to this podcast, that's still not who you are. You are still worth way more than that. You can't let that define you. Georgia and Tennessee did not let those two losses define them. They're all right. You know what? There's one more game, and so like sports in general is the safest place to fail because there's always going to be another game. You may lose the championship. You may lose the home opener. You may lose homecoming or something like that. There's always going to be another game. It may be next season, but there's always going to be another game, and so you're going to lose in sports. But don't let that define you. Don't let that be who you are. You are not that. Let's learn from that. That's the whole point. Watching film. Now, watching film when you have lost is the worst feeling when the coach starts pointing out all your flaws. But you take that and you just like, all right, you sit there and you're okay. Yep, that's not me. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna move on and I'm gonna learn from that. But I don't know about you, but watching film when you messed up was the worst. And the coach just goes, all right, so here's what you did. Gardner, you did this wrong. And I was like, okay, thanks, I know. But
it's kind of fun on the coaching side of it.
Yeah,
when
you're the player,
when you're pointing out but yeah, it's fun on the coach side. But going back to what you were saying earlier about practice being really hard and you hated practice, like sports intentionally make the practices hard so that the game's easy.
Yeah, right, fair.
You need to go through a really hard training regimen because it's gonna make you better for when you play the game.
Right.
And going back to talking about, Paul's sports analogies that he uses in scripture. And here, one I'm about to say is one we've talked about on the podcast before, but Hebrews 12:1-2, Paul uses this analogy of a race. And while he's talking about it, he says, therefore, since we're surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and run with endurance the race set out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith. So what he's using this analogy of running a race because he was in the Greek Roman culture at the time. The Olympics were a big thing. He probably went to watch races often. And so he talks about this weight and sin that ensnares you, that holds you back from running your race well. And when he's using this analogy of a race, he's using it to say each of us has a race to run that God, our creator, has laid out for us. He has given us a purpose. You're here on earth for a reason. But there's going to be these things. There's sins that we can easily fall into and become trapped and enslaved by if we don't look to Jesus. But there's also what he uses the term weight, which I think are things that wouldn't be considered sin, but things that hold you back, like depression, anxiety, a really traumatic event that happened to you, self-doubt, fear. I could go on and list more, but all those things, I think what Paul is saying is if we view those as a running parachute, like athletes used to train, or like a really hard, difficult practice, once you get through that, and once you lay aside those weights that are holding you back, you're going to be able to run the race better, faster, stronger, because you went through that, because you had those things weighing you down. And I think that's in sports teaches you that you have to go through really hard things to get better. If practices were easy and you showed up on game day, you would get stomped because you wouldn't be prepared for what the other team is bringing. So you have to go through difficulty and challenge in order to become a better person. But so often we go through life just trying to avoid any difficulty or any challenge at all costs, which we shouldn't foolishly bring that on ourselves. But it's just an inevitable part of life, so we should grow to expect it and have the perspective of, okay, this traumatic event that happened to me could be happening to me to make me better. What can I learn from it? And that I feel like that's how you take responsibility of that, because it sucks that thing happened, that someone did something terrible to you and hurt you. It sucks. But a way that you can kind of not just be a victim in that scenario is to say, okay, this person did this to me and it really hurt. What am I going to do next? What am I going to do about it? What can I learn from it? What is God trying to teach me through it? And that's empowerment, man. Like, if you can have that perspective, that's just a game changer. It's a game changer.
No, it is. And like, so for football reference is I had this season, and being a coach, like you said, it's there's some differences. It's a lot of fun, but there, because I'm seeing things that I'm seeing myself play, and I'm like, man, like I did not see this perspective. Like if I would have just had a zoomed out, it's a whole another lesson. But with that is this guy was getting, like, it was during a game, he was getting beat by the defensive tackle. And so we called timeout, and I went up to him, just him. I didn't talk to anybody else, and I said, "Hey, you are standing straight up every time," and he is using that to advantage, and he is coming after you. Let's get a little lower, and then let's be explosive off. Make sure that you hit him first and be low. Don't stand straight up. After that, I mean, I've already told him that like so many other times, but he just finally listens to that. After that, he's now the one who's driving backwards. And so, like, during those times when life does get hard, okay, let's correct. Let's get back in there. Let's get back in the 3-point stance. Let's be coachable when people give us advice, and that we can, okay, let's not have our pride get in a way that we're not going to not take advice. So let's be coachable in that moment. Let's get back down that 3-point stance, and let's fix what we did wrong, and let's go from there. And so, yeah, like to your point, you're going to have things happen, but let's keep practicing. Let's keep doing these things, and let's correct it. Let's not, because if he just kept, like, you can practice, but if you keep practicing the same thing incorrectly, you're not improving. So, like, if in practice, he was standing up every time. And I told him in practice, you're standing up. And then finally game happened, and I told him, hey, remember what I said? Like, now you're losing. Like, you're able to beat our second string defense because you're bigger than them. But now this guy's bigger than you, so now you actually have to do what I was saying. So don't
Yeah.
practice incorrectly. You need to practice correctly, because you can, that's why I think you and I talk about how we don't like bye weeks because
Mm-hmm.
they can make you lazy. So don't just be lazy in practice. Actually, you actually have to give effort. So in life, don't just be going through the motions. If you want to be fit, okay, and you go to the gym and you don't really do anything, but hey, I went to the gym. Okay, so what? Or if you go to the gym but you're still eating bad, you're practicing incorrectly. You're not doing that. So practice to the full potential. That's kind of what you were saying a little bit, right?
Yeah, yeah, and just as you're talking, I'm thinking of so many
Oh,
things
dude,
that
there's
are
so many.
just translates over. But um, I mean, the first thing you're talking about being coachable, that's what you look at the most successful athletes, that's what people say about them is they were coachable.
Yeah,
And just to tie it back to the couple podcast episodes ago, we were talking about um, the key to wisdom, the beginning of wisdom is having this humility. And that's what being coachable is.
okay, yeah, that's fair.
And if you can learn that in sports, that can definitely translate over into life. If you can be coachable, that means you have a humility about you. Tom Brady, I don't think anyone would argue that he's the greatest quarterback of all time. Maybe some
Yeah.
people would. That dude was coachable. He had the humility to still listen to his coaches when they corrected him or told him to tweak this, change that. He would listen.
Mhm.
And I think that's huge for us to not be so puffed up with pride that we're not able to listen to others when they try to correct us or challenge us or just instruct us and teach us. Um, but then also the second thing you said about in practice, it's doing these small things over and over again so it becomes like muscle memory. That's huge for life too. So often I feel like we set these big goals and we just want to bite it all off at one time. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I haven't been running at all, but I'm going to go run 3 miles a day, every day, 7 days a week.
Right.
Like, that's not realistic. You got to start building these habits over time and just keep stacking days. Like, just one day at a time, small habits will build up. You can't
Yeah.
just have these really short, intense periods of doing something and expect it to have long-term results. It's all about stacking up the consistent habits. Just like in practice, I went and watched my dad coach, and he coaches a middle school team as well. And I went to watch them play, and I'm just watching the offensive linemen. What you're saying. They're standing straight up. They're just not moving their feet. They're not attacking, and they're not just the fundamental things they don't have a habit of. And I remember playing football, we had what they called a T-board, which was it was like one horizontal rubber piece and then one vertical rubber piece. And so you would put your feet on the left side, and it was to help you with the spacing of your steps.
Oh, gotcha.
And you would because as an offensive lineman, you want to take short, choppy steps,
Right.
because that's how you get power and you get up under somebody. And it would help with and we would do that for the first 30 minutes of practice every single day, to the point where I promise you, if you put a T-board out there right now, I could still do it. And that's how habits are. When we want to institute habits, we have to have the mindset of, this isn't just some short, quick fix, but this is something that I need to do repeatedly for the long haul. Reading your Bible, phenomenal habit. It won't help you if you only do it one day a week. It won't help you if you try it for a week and then don't do it.
Hmm.
You got to do it over time for the long haul. Same thing with any other working out, any habit, any healthy habit you're trying to institute. Consistency matters more than how big of a goal you're trying to set for yourself.
Yeah, and you got to put that work in even when you're at the top, because there's a famous quote. I'm not quote, but just like a saying that people say is, oh well, that team, they played to the level of their competition. Meaning,
Mm-hmm.
when a really good football team plays a bad team, then they Like take us like for I think when we played Mississippi State, when Georgia played them, we didn't blow them out of the water at first because we were like came in there and Mississippi State is not as good as Georgia, and so we were like, okay, it's gonna be easy, So we'll go in there and we'll just play like we won't like play our hardest because they're not a good team, and we struggled a little bit in the beginning because we played to the level of our competition. So even when you're at the top, you still got to put in your effort for that. So don't think just because you know what, I haven't slipped up. I haven't fallen into temptation in a while. I haven't gone to grab a bottle, when I'm depressed. I haven't went over and I haven't indulged any other kind of sin, or I haven't fallen short in a while. So I'm good. I'm fine. Like, don't get cocky, because people don't drift towards being healthy. They'll drift away
Mm.
from being healthy. And
Mm-hmm.
so you have to put that work in. That's why, Texas, who also have the new college rankings came out yet? Sorry, I don't know if they have.
Probably, but I haven't seen them.
Texas is not number one anymore.
Yeah,
Hopefully it's Georgia. I doubt it will be Georgia. Probably will be
probably
Oregon.
Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Oregon now number one. Okay, they're not going to be like, okay, we're number one now. All right, and like it's not like Dan Lanning is going to go, okay, everybody, you have the rest of the season off because now we're number one. So no, they're not. Or if they win the national championship, they're not going to be like, all right, guys, we get the whole next season off. We don't have to work. No, they still have to work. They still have to go because even though you're at the top, you can still fall. And so in life, you still have to work on yourself every single day. Just because you're doing good, just because you haven't been depressed in a while, maybe you haven't been anxious in a while, doesn't mean you stop. Like the reason why you haven't been depressed in a while or anxious, not the full reason, but maybe one reason why is because you're putting in this work right now. Now, will you still have like depression come up? Will you still have that? Yes, because I said before, mental health is not linear. You're going to have some ups and downs. But one way to help not cause those downs is to put that work in, because the moment that you start getting cocky and be like, you know what, I'm fine, is the day you're going to slip up. So even when you're at the top, still put that work in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's so easy to get comfortable if you're in a place where you've been feeling good for a while.
Right.
And the best coaches find ways to keep their team motivated. I think the thing is you stay focused on yourself. You keep focused on yourself so that when you face those smaller teams or those lesser teams, you don't play down to the competition, because you have a standard you're trying to achieve as a team. So you focus on yourself and say, this is who we are as a team. We're going to set the standard, keep the standard. And in life, I think it needs to be the same way. Like you can't get so caught up in your circumstances that anytime your circumstances change, your mood's got to change.
Yeah.
There can be a standard that you set for yourself to say, this is who I am as a person. This is who I want to be as a person. And this is what I'm going to work for, no matter whether things are going well, things are going bad. My circumstances aren't going to dictate my identity. And I think that's just huge so thank you for sharing that.
No, yeah, man. To motivate, like we do another one, just about you're talking about like where if you're in that part, the coach is going to give you this motivational speech. You're never going to be somewhere else in life where you're going to be in a locker room and you're going to have this like older coach who's just going to be just like an old Baptist preacher, just like yelling at you, and man,
Mm-hmm.
some of those things in football, I want to run through a freaking wall after he told me those stuff, and like
Mm-hmm.
you're never going to have anything like that, and I miss those speeches. Like, did your coach ever go crazy with those?
Yeah, I had different coaches have different personalities. So
Yeah,
we had some that were more calm, level-headed, and then we had others who were rah-rah,
right.
get in your face type of guys. And I think you need both.
You
Like,
do a balance.
because when things get chaotic and things aren't going well, you need that calm presence to be like, hey, we're good. We're going to
Yeah,
get it right. We're okay. You don't want
yeah,
somebody freaking out, acting like the world's falling apart. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, those different personalities definitely help.
But dude, Kirby Smart, he has the best motivational speech. I don't know about your coach. I don't know if they have some
Heupel's more of
leaky.
a calm.
Yeah,
He's more one of a calm
he does give
personality,
that.
but
Yeah,
what he's really good about is his players know he loves them and
that's
cares
cool.
for him,
That's cool.
and so they want to play for him.
Yeah,
So yeah, but like you said earlier, we could go on and on and on and on and on about how sports are just great for you, and you should play them because it'll teach you so much about life. But even if you've never played sports, we hope that our conversation today helped you learn something that you can go take and apply to your life.
yeah. And
And
if you
so,
also like, if we missed one that is a lesson that you've learned, put it in the comments, put it in the comments on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, like. Put in the comments on a lesson that you might have learned. I would love if I missed one,
yeah,
or maybe I didn't think. I would love to learn new ones or hear y'all's perspective on that. So, if you
yeah,
have lessons that we didn't say or you like the ones that we said, put it in the comments and let us know.
yeah, that's actually a great idea. I would love to hear how everybody else thinks sports have a positive impact on us and how it, forms us and gets us ready for life. So yeah, definitely leave a comment. You can do it on Spotify. You can do it on YouTube, or as we post social media clips throughout the week, you can comment on those. Which, if you're not following us on social media yet, you should.
You should.
Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You can subscribe. But yeah, we would love to hear your take, your opinion. But yeah, this was fun, Johnny.
I love this. We've been wanting to do this one for a minute. We just haven't found time
Yep.
to do this
Oh
one.
yeah,
So this is a good one.
because me and you both are super passionate about
Yeah.
this.
This is
Yeah.
our conversation on a weekly basis is about how sports has done
Yep.
this. So it's about time we actually made a podcast about it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, as always, you guys out there listening, go be a dog today.
And please be there for your dogs.